Ladies and gentlemen, the Football Scoop podcast is back. More importantly, college football is back, baby. It's Thursday. It's game night. The whole darn country is watching. It's on. Let's go. I've got two-time reigning champion, picker of the year, John Bryce.
Oh, that's me.
On set, in the hat, like he always is, ready to roll. His picks are in. The picks are coming out hot in about hour or so right after the show.
Heavy as the head that wears the crown.
We have no retort. The man's won 2 years in a row. Until you beat the champ, he is the champ. I got Zach Barnett, Doug Samuels. Gentlemen, let's talk college football, the real stuff. Tonight, a couple of really good games. I would argue the most intriguing one and the most eyeballs will be on Coach Prime. Got North Dakota State. North Dakota State's a little different than they have been over the last 10 years. New coach coming in. Some different faces, to be honest. Prime is Prime. There will be eyeballs. Give me your feedback, your thoughts on that one, guys.
You know, under normal circumstances, I think that North Dakota State would be a prime upset pick here. I know that there's still a pretty trendy upset pick here, and for those people who like to dabble and such things, I know a lot of people that are taking North Dakota State in the 9.5 points. I think that Deion is going to be bent on sending a message, and I think that the skill position players at Colorado, along with I don't think they're elite on the offensive and defensive lines. I think they're better on the offensive and defensive lines, and so I expect Colorado to put up quite a few points and to win this contest, pulling away over the course of the second half. I think that it won't spawn the overreactions that Deion and company's win did last year to open the season at TCU. But I think this will be a more substantive Colorado performance. And North Dakota State's still going to be a great team this year. But like you mentioned, Tim Polasek taking over the new regime. A lot of players lost off last year's team. Some other coaches lost. I think that's difficult.
Yeah, the ultimate question of Deion as a major college football head coach is, can he build a deep and competitive roster from 1 to 85? And that's not a question that's going to be answered in a single game, specifically an opener against North Dakota State. So this is a game that I agree with JB that Colorado should be able to literally and metaphorically run away from the Bison.
I think it's going to be there's going to be a huge difference in styles of play. You're going to have Shedeur that wants to sprinkle the ball all around the field to some really talented receivers. And then, you know, the DNA in Fargo has been to pound the rock for forever, right? So can Colorado handle that for 4 quarters? I think it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people think. Colorado had a huge issues protecting the quarterback last year, and North Dakota State always has one of the best defenses in the FCS ranks. So I think Prime probably win it just because they've got some special talent right now. I think in a year, if this is a week 1 matchup a year from now, we're having a completely different conversation. But I think the scales tip a little bit in Colorado's favor, but I think it's a close one.
North Dakota State is one of those teams that has some horses up front on the defensive line and has some depth at the defensive line that could challenge. Colorado's offensive line wasn't very good last year. Could challenge that and make it hard. I do think Colorado's skilled guys are fantastic. And I think we're going to see that tonight. I think Colorado wins. I don't know by how many, but I think it'll be an entertaining game regardless. All right, let's shift gears. North Carolina's at Minnesota. Any thoughts on that one?
I'm interested to see what Mac Brown has when he doesn't have a ready-made future NFL starting quarterback at his disposal. Minnesota, I was looking it up for my on the line piece. They played these Thursday night home openers nearly every year going back more than a decade now, and they're usually really good in these games. They lost to TCU when they were top 5. They lost to a top 5 Ohio State team. Other than that, they win these games. So this will be really interesting second viewing aside from the Colorado game.
The environment at this game is phenomenal. I went to the one versus TCU, and it was bonkers. That place is fantastic. Got a heck of a beer garden in stadium, and the fans respond to that. And it's a great environment for college football. I think Minnesota wins that game straight up. All right. Coastal Carolina at Jacksonville State has potential. I think Jack State is a better team, but has real potential to be a fun one tonight. Any thoughts on that one, guys?
Jacksonville State has garnered very deep dark horse college football playoff vibes as the undefeated, or not undefeated, but the top group of 5 champ. So this will be one worth keeping an eye on.
Rich Rod's a ball coach. He gets the best out of his quarterback, and that's how it is at that level often.
Yeah, and Coastal breaking in a new quarterback for the first time in a really long time. I think that's significant. And then one quick point that I had on the Minnesota-North Carolina game is just interested to see Corey Heatherman's defense at Minnesota. He takes over a defensive coordinator, but PJ Fleck keeps it in that Greg Schiano tree, that Greg Schiano family. So it'll be still very similar. But this is a huge game. Minnesota needs to bounce back, needs a bounce back season. And to Zach's point, what does Mac Brown do? He keeps pointing out that people are talking about him retiring after every year, and he's not going anywhere. Almost Wolf of Wall Street vibes. They're really good at running back at North Carolina, but they've got a lot of questions, and they haven't always met a physical challenge, and this is going to be a physical challenge.
Shifting back to Coastal Carolina real quick, has any group of 5 team like gone from the hot topic conversation under Jamie Chadwell to really not discussed that much at all? Last year they just kind of, I don't want to say they fell off, but there was a steep drop off in terms of being part of the national conversation.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're in a group of 5, though.
Well, Tim Beck needs to find something, and hopefully he does. I don't want to spend much time on this one, but John Summerall's opener, he's got Southeastern Louisiana. I saw one of the local reporters saying this might be the first college football game he's ever been to where 6 quarterbacks are expected to play. That's intriguing. Southeastern is going to rotate a bunch of guys. Tulane has a couple of good ones, and they're trying to figure out who the guy is. It might be entertaining to watch. All right, the last night of the game, Sac State at San Jose State, Kenny Niumatalolo's first game. Thoughts on that one, gentlemen?
I mean, I'm just excited to see Kenny back in coaching. He made a really good hire in an off-the-field GM-type role this offseason, getting Garrett Wolf to come back to San Jose State away from Stanford. Zach and I have gotten to know Garrett a little bit at some of the DFO meetings the last couple of years. Really, really sharp guy. And Ken is obviously really sharp. So I think a lot of people will be tuned into either this game late at night or to highlights of this game tomorrow to see what San Jose looks like with Ken Niumatalolo at the helm.
I think the football junkies are the ones that are going to be up watching this one just to see what offense rolls out on the field.
Yeah, exactly my point. Exactly.
Yeah.
Friday night, most important game of the night is Comstock Park up in Michigan. Got a big opener. Doug, give me a little debrief on that
one. Tri-County's our opponent. They're a program led by I think head coach Phil Butler's been there for 12 years, so they've had things rolling. I think they won 7 games last year, 9 or 10 the year before, 10 the year before. So they've been a really successful program. Graduated all 5 of their offensive linemen, and nothing makes me smile bigger than that. So breaking in a whole new offensive line, and returned 4 out of 5 starters up front. So that makes me feel a little warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Comstock Park. What's the time? 7 o'clock, Doug, Friday night?
7 o'clock. You know it.
Let's go. When that one finishes, TCU Stanford will still be ongoing. Temple will be hoping that the game versus Oklahoma is over, but it won't be. FAU Michigan State could be in an interesting battle. And then 8 o'clock Central, Western Michigan at Wisconsin has potential to be a fun, entertaining football game. Any thoughts there, gentlemen?
Well, that Temple Oklahoma game will be over whether or not it's over or not.
So, don't watch that.
Just wanted to. I mean, look, I think Doug has made the best point that he believes there's a massive leap forward coming this year for Wisconsin. I'm starting to, buy into his cheese Kool-Aid there and agree. I think that Wisconsin is putting some stuff together. I think they're going to have much more of the physical identity that they expect to have, but they've added, I think, some explosive playmakers that we're going to start to see more of. And for a guy like Lance Taylor, kind of a friend of the program, a former Football Scoop running backs coach of the year, I'm concerned, as we already discussed a couple of weeks ago, lost his OC, his DC, and his GM, and now has to open on the road at Whiskey. That's going to be tough. So my thing is, I think the Badgers kind of roll, and hopefully Western Michigan learns some stuff about itself and can pivot forward and focus on the meat of its schedule against a bunch of MAC teams. But I think Wisconsin is going to put a big step forward, in my opinion.
I'm keeping an eye on TCU Stanford. If you're Stanford and your schedule requires you to make multiple literal cross-country road trips and you're at Notre Dame, you got to win your home games. If you want to make a bowl game, you got to win your home games. So that starts Friday night. And TCU looking to wipe the slate clean from a Murphy's Law type 2023 season. Josh Hoover, after kind of being thrust into the starting role at quarterback, is now the guy. The overall roster should be good. This is a game that TCU should win, but Stanford needs to win.
And Stanford has one of the best players in college football, certainly one of the best wideouts in Eric Alamanor. He's really, really good. He single-handedly basically led their comeback win against Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes a year ago, had maybe over 300 yards receiving. It was just an insane game. He's back. He should be even better. So interesting to see how Stanford strides forward in year two of that new regime.
And Zach makes a great point. There might be there's a lot of important home schedules for teams. Those ACC teams, those West Coast ACC teams that are going coast to coast, there's probably no more important home games than what those guys have.
Yeah, Troy Taylor was hired for a reason. He's a really good ball coach. Hey, guess what? We're going to put you in the ACC. It was not on his dance card, but
and also here's a roster that loved to use 12, 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on the field, 6 O-linemen, and now he's had to completely revamp that roster.
Yeah, but he knew that going in. He didn't know.
No doubt.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Troy's going to do well there eventually. He needs to find his right 11 and put him on the field. All right, let's shift gears to Saturday. Some of the big ranked games. Talk about a couple others. Clemson, Georgia at the very top. What do you got, guys?
I mean, Georgia's number 1 in the country, and I think are they a 2-touchdown favorite or something like that? Return their stud quarterback, return a bunch of key pieces. The continuity that Kirby's had there at Georgia has been exceptional since losing Dan Lanning to Oregon. Glenn Schumann's one of the top defensive coordinators in the country and could have jumped to the NFL last year with the Eagles, had that opportunity deep in the process. I mean, especially with Nick Saban stepping away, I feel like it's Georgia. I mean, you could probably make a case for Oregon, but it's Georgia and everyone else in my mind. And I think that becomes clear. If it wasn't clear enough in their bowl game against Florida State, where I know was sitting a bunch of guys or opted out or whatever, I think it becomes clear this week. So
Ohio State, not even in Doug's mind.
Didn't even mention him.
Fighting words in Columbus. To me, this game is more about Clemson than Georgia. If you roll back to this weekend 3 years ago, Clemson was ranked ahead of Georgia when they met in Charlotte, and that was the beginning of the championship run for Georgia, and really the beginning of the end as for Clemson as a championship level program. And 3 seasons they haven't even really been close to making the playoff. I know Dabo said to buy stock in Clemson after they won their last 5 games in last season against 5 teams that weren't even close to as good as Georgia's going to be. So now they're 2-touchdown underdogs. So I don't think it's fair to expect them to go in there and win the game as 2-touchdown underdogs. But I'd like to see them be competitive in the fourth quarter.
Well, look, it's early. I know it's early, but the ACC needs Clemson to have a strong performance in this game on Saturday. Again, Clemson returns a lot. It's Garrett Riley's second year. It's supposed to be more of his offense that we're all going to see. Klubnik is a veteran quarterback, countering Carson Beck on the other side at quarterback for Georgia. Beck was really nice last year. I'm surprised he seems to be such a consensus All-American pick this year. Georgia doesn't have many questions, but it's replacing a number of starters on defense again, and it has some real questions at the running back position. So having said all of that, I still think that Georgia wins, and I still think that Georgia wins by more than the 13.5-point line that Vegas has instilled.
As a rebuttal to Zach, is Ohio State in that conversation from a talent standpoint, and a coaching talent standpoint? Without question. But I think the hardest thing in the transfer portal era from a coaching perspective is bringing in a bunch of new dudes without any continuity and creating a championship level program in year one. I think that's you cannot understate how difficult that is and how you have to have a really special skill set to do that. Could Ryan Day be that guy? Sure, but I rank continuity over talent as far as roster goes, and coaching continuity. I rank that above roster talent.
Lane Kiffin would present himself as a rebuttal. That's okay.
I'm writing it down, Doug. I'm writing that down.
All right. Talk to me about Morgantown, Penn State, West Virginia. West Virginia got a shot here, fellas?
Always got a shot at home. And again, it's a program with some real momentum after last year's bounce back. But this is in a lot of ways a put up or shut up year for Penn State. And I feel like Penn State at times has been able to go on the road and maybe perform a little bit better than being flat in some massive settings there in Happy Valley. So, West Virginia's got a shot because this is a long ago rivalry. These two teams are not separated by too terribly much distance. There's not a lot of love there between them. I think it's close going into the second half. I just think Penn State better win, or James Franklin starts feeling some real pressure mount from week one on if the Nittany Lions don't get it done.
If I'm Neil Brown, I take the ball if we have the opportunity, and I try and scheme up some big plays and build an early lead. If you can jump out 10-0, even 14-0, 14-3, that would be fantastic. You're not going to be able to put together a lot of 12, 14-play scoring drives against this Penn State defense. So I'm looking to hit some big plays early and try and draw Penn State into deep water. And what would be, if the team can hold up its end of the bargain, a raucous atmosphere on the road for Penn State.
How about Notre Dame A&M? Huge game, in my opinion.
One of us has called this the biggest game in a coach's tenure. I guess by default, it's if we're going to believe that, by default, it's the biggest game in both these guys' tenures.
Well, there's no disputing it's the biggest game of Marcus Freeman's career, and it's a key game for Notre Dame to win. It's a game that Notre Dame absolutely needs to win. And what I've said is that it's not just so for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, but it's what they absorb as well. There's a perception out there about Notre Dame having not gotten it done, particularly against SEC foes, whether it was under BK or whomever. This is a road game. It's an opportunity. There's not a lot of meat left on Notre Dame's schedule. Notre Dame voluntarily, as part of the 12-team playoff, said, yeah, we'll be a part of it, and we'll never have a top 4 seed, and we'll never get a bye since we don't play in a conference, and that's okay because we would like to host somebody in South Bend the third weekend of December. Well, if you're planning to host somebody in South Bend the third weekend of December, you put that forward this weekend. You have to put that forward this weekend. Saturday is the biggest game of Marcus Freeman's coaching career. If Notre Dame wins it, Marcus Freeman guarantees himself he gets to coach in a bigger game down the road.
Yeah, the interesting thing storylines-wise is you have Riley Leonard going off against Mike Elko when that was the head coach QB combo at Duke last season. I listened to Mike Elko speak this week. He said he thinks it's a bigger advantage for Riley Leonard and Notre Dame than it is for him because Leonard's going to know Elko better than Elko knows Leonard, especially the new offense where they're studying what Mike Denbrock did at LSU and Cincinnati. Notre Dame's very young on the offensive line, which Elko downplayed. He was like, look, every freshman who's ever started at Notre Dame on the offensive lines end up becoming a first-round pick. So whoever they put up there is going to be really good. I'm going to be interested to see how Colin Klein and A&M manufacture a run game, manufacture points against a good Notre Dame defense in game one of their new system. I like Notre Dame, and I like the under.
I really like the under a lot. 46.5, I think, is what I saw earlier this week. I don't see any way. I don't see any way that this game eclipses 46.5. I want to follow up on that and ask our resident coach because I also heard those comments yesterday from Mike Elko on the SEC coaches teleconference. He just said, look, I'm not saying he's got the upper hand. I'm saying I do think it's a bigger advantage that not only does he know our defense, but he went against our defense basically every day for 2 years. So, Coach Sams, how would you evaluate that matchup within the matchup right there? And then how significant is it that Riley Leonard does seemingly know a lot of the intricacies of the Mike Elko defense?
I mean, we know as well as probably any podcast out there in the universe that coaches are paranoid to an extent, to varying degrees, but you can bet that Elko and company are going to go into that game and have that right at the forefront of their mind, that they're going against a quarterback that knows them intimately. So that they'll have some change ups. They'll try and pre-snap show one thing and make Riley Leonard comfortable, and then rotate out of it as the cadence starts. But also, I mean, Mike Denbrock's one of the best offensive coordinators in college football. So he'll use some of that knowledge from Riley Leonard that I'm sure has been shared over the last couple of weeks. But it's not the end all be all. Like Denbrock's going to have the things that he likes to do, and like Zach kind of alluded to, this is probably the number one matchup of offensive coordinators that I'm looking forward to see this weekend. Like two new guys, new to their environments, that have called plays at a really high level in a hotly contested game. So there's gonna be some curveballs, but Mike Denbrock's one of the best play callers in college football, top 5 for sure.
I think Riley Leonard has to run for more than 50 yards. He has to have net more than 50 yards for Notre Dame to win this game on Saturday night. Also, I think the presence of Al Golden on the Notre Dame side as defensive coordinator with one of the veteran-most defenses in all of college football is ultimately what makes me think Notre Dame gets it done in this game. You mentioned staff continuity earlier, and that being key, Doug. And I think even though Denbrock is debuting in his return to Notre Dame, he's coached with Marcus Freeman before. He's coached with Mike Brown, the new wide receivers coach that Notre Dame hired away, and he's coached with Gino Guidugli before. So whereas on the other side of the field, it is the first time in a game together for Mike Elko and Colin Klein and a number of these other coaches. So I do think from a staff continuity standpoint, even though Mike Denbrock's a first-year offensive coordinator, there's a cohesion and a familiarity there that I do think should help Notre Dame and should most importantly deny Notre Dame from panicking if the Aggie yells get really, really loud inside College Station on Saturday night.
Let's talk Miami, Florida. Miami versus Florida. Zach, give me I know you have some strong feelings here. I know you like Miami to win the game. Tell me why.
I think they have a better roster. I trust their backfield combination of Cam Ward and Damian Martinez more than I trust Florida's combination. But I think this is the most fascinating game of week one, simply because both of these coaches and programs need to avoid a loss more than they need and will enjoy the taste, the savor of victory. Simply because, you're looking at 2 seasons plus 1 game for whoever loses this game as being a complete and total disappointment. If you are Mario Cristobal, you were hired to take Miami back to the top of the ACC, and here game 1 of year 3, you can't even beat a bottom feeder in the SEC. And if you're Florida, you're looking at we have the hardest SEC schedule of all time, and we can't even beat an ACC team on our home field. And that's going to be the reality for one of these teams by Saturday evening, and I can't wait.
Who gets hurt the most with the loss, head coaching wise?
Oh, I think Napier.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
I think so. But losing this game, you're also like, hey, the rest of our schedule is brutal as well. Like, can we get back on track? Whereas if Mario Cristobal loses this as a top 20 team, and they drop this opener to a Florida team that's schedule only gets tougher, like I think you could make the argument for both sides.
I think you could. I lean towards Napier because the rest of his schedule is so difficult that you got to get this one. Cristobal, if you lose this one, obviously it's a terrible look, but you could go still win the ACC and find yourself as a 3 seed in the playoff at even a 10-2. Their schedule after this is not that difficult.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Zach. Sometimes that pains me to say, but the fact of the matter is that there's fairly clean runway for Miami from this point forward. There is not clean runway. There's weeds, there's potholes, there's all sorts of crap in the road in the runway for Florida after this game. I just think that if Florida loses this game, every single one of us knows Florida is not done losing. And I just think Billy Napier's comments were really interesting. I had a lot of respect for them. I like Billy. We've talked a little bit through the years. I have a lot of respect for him in general, but I like the fact that he's preaching some mental toughness and saying, hey, we're not running from this challenge. We're running to this challenge. We're running to this challenge of our schedule, and we're talking about that right now. We've talked about that over the offseason. It's given us an edge in our preparations, and we're certainly running to this game Saturday against Miami. And they better because, we heard the head ball coach say he thinks that they can win 9 games and finish mid-pack of the SEC, even though he's really high on Jalen DeBoer in Alabama. But I think that Florida finds a way to get it done. Honestly, I would pick the home team in this game, and because it's going to be in the Swamp and because there's so much on it. And Graham Mertz has played in big games. I know Cam Ward is really talented, but he's bounced around a bunch, and he's in a different system for like the 3rd year in a row. I think that's significant. And then does Florida break out a special package for DJ Lagway, who's obviously the quarterback of the future there, they hope. So a lot of interesting. It's a great rivalry period. It's even better with all the subplots that fill it this year.
I think it's going to be a great game. I'd like the record to reflect August 29th, 2024, Zach Barnett labeled Florida an SEC bottom feeder. That's where we are, folks.
I said what I said.
Whew. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but JB, give me what are you excited to see from not Jalen, but Kalen DeBoer's squad at Alabama? First time under Kalen at home. Western Kentucky's coming to town. Western Kentucky's going to score some points.
What does Jalen Milroe look like under Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan? That's first and foremost for me. How good is Alabama on the offensive line and then the backfield? And I'm just honestly really excited to see the thumbprint of Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer back together on the offensive side of the ball, and then Kane Womack and company on the defensive side of the ball. That's what I'm really excited about. Being able to go get Kane and get him to leave a really nice G5 job with some good facilities that had committed a lot of money to him to come be co-defensive coordinator at Alabama, I think was probably an underrated coup for Kalen DeBoer. And so that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got the co-title, but he's a defensive coordinator. Zach, Boise State, Georgia Southern, big game. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. And researching for my On the Line piece, I discovered or wrote how Boise State has gone to a southeastern location, if we can count Washington, D.C. as the southeast, nearly every single season for 13 straight years. They played Virginia Tech, but it was at the old Redskins Stadium. If you're from Boise, it counts. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity for Clay Helton, who's coming off 2 6-7 seasons, had some big wins, one at Nebraska, beat a ranked James Madison, but hasn't really accomplished a whole lot outside of that. To beat the biggest branded prohibitive favorite in the group of 5 on your home field would be great for him. For Boise State, they've launched a Heisman campaign for their running back, Ashton Jeanty. So it'd be great for him to go out and ball out in a game Boise should win, despite the southeastern location.
Southeastern, my man said.
I think Clay Helton has about as much pressure on him entering year 3 at Georgia Southern as just about any G5 coach out there, especially with some of the stops on Clay Helton's coaching career. I think this is you guys like this term, and it's week 1, so I can't believe I'm throwing it out there. But this has to be a plant the flag game for Georgia Southern, period.
I think Southern balls out. I think it's going to be a great game, to be honest. There are a bunch of other Saturday games I want to talk about, but I want to get to Sunday, Monday real fast. Sunday's USC LSU in Vegas, all the eyeballs, nothing else on. That's an enormous game for college football. That's one that, Saturday, you're trying to watch so many games, and if you're a fan and you go to one of your games, you miss almost all the other games. Sunday, all of America is on USC LSU. How's that one play out, fellas?
Scott, I'm interested to hear, what do you expect from LSU?
Well, so Garrett Nussmeier loves to throw the ball down the field. He is not a dink and dunk type guy. He's I got a shot, I'm taking it. I got a shot, I'm taking it. I got a shot, I'm taking it. I think LSU will score points in a big way. I'm excited to see what Blake Baker does with the talent that they have. It would be nice if Harold Perkins returned to the Harold Perkins that he was as a freshman. If so, that would make LSU a lot of fun to watch. USC, so many changes there. Whole new defensive staff. I don't know what to expect from USC. I expect LSU to win the game. I think LSU is going to score a lot of points. I think USC will score points. I just think LSU has more offense. So I think at the end of the day, they win the game.
LSU more offense than a Lincoln Riley offense. That's put that one on the calendar too. That's impressive.
This is another game where the subplots are fascinating to me because they're inextricably linked. Because LSU tried to hire Lincoln Riley back in 21 before Lincoln Riley ultimately accepted the USC job. LSU immediately pivoted, hired away Brian Kelly. Now these two guys are meeting in Las Vegas because naturally USC and LSU should play in Las Vegas. And it's key years for both of them. Brian Kelly was a little ahead of pace in year one when he led LSU to the SEC Western Division title and a championship game appearance. Lincoln Riley did a bunch of great things in his year one out at USC and then stepped back a little bit last year, breaking in a new quarterback now in Miller Moss, who was fabulous in the bowl game. USC is touting its big offensive line. LSU has a big offensive line, and LSU obviously also breaking in new coordinators on both sides of the ball. So it's a huge game. Like, both teams have enough left on their schedules where they're going to have additional statement opportunities. But you talk about two coaches that don't want to lose because of the issues it's going to raise. You've got real stakes involved here for both Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley started 17-3 at USC. If he loses this game, he'll be 2-6 in his last 8, which is as bad as it got in USC's dark years in between Pete Carroll and Lincoln Riley.
But a new defensive coordinator that I think has the ability to really change the trajectory of where that's going.
Completely agree. DeAnton Lynn is really good.
All right, give me quick thoughts on does Florida State right it and do exceedingly well versus a Boston College team that's in transition and Bill O'Brien's first game, yada yada yada, or is this kind of a slug them out, see who wins the game? And man, Florida State, thoughts?
Yeah, I think without being a prisoner of the moment, I think last weekend exposed Florida State's got some issues. They've got to figure out how physical they can be up front on the offensive line. They've got to figure out their depth and how aggressive and how much they want it on the defensive side of the ball. We know Bill O'Brien teams are going to play fundamentally sound and tend not to beat themselves. If Boston College scores early, that's going to contribute to the doubt that Florida State had to have put in its head just a little bit last weekend and losing that game to Georgia Tech.
I think,
to quote oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
No. I think week 2, as far as week 1 games go, if I were playing a week 0 game, especially over the pond, I would not want to see a week 2 team on my schedule or a week 1 game on my schedule, game 2, that was a former NFL head coach and GM. Like, you just put a bunch of stuff on film week 0 for them to dissect, and you've got a first year head coach and Bill O'Brien at Boston College with a that, like JB said, they're going to be fundamentally sound. They're going to do some really great things offensively. Bill O'Brien will have them ready to play. I'd be on danger alert if I were Florida State, for sure.
Two things to add. One, ESPN's David Hale had a great stat. Boston College averaged 6 yards per carry running outside the tackles in the AC, which was second in the ACC last year. Florida State allowed 7 per carry outside the tackles against Georgia Tech last week. And two, my old high school coach, Mark Bowles, always told us that teams make their biggest improvement from week 1 to week 2. So that's the opportunity for Florida State there.
No data to back that up, I think, but that sticks in your mind as a high school player.
Yeah.
All right, I got 2 quick ones I'm looking for thoughts on, and then I'm going to open the floor to you guys. Iowa has Illinois State. Kirk Ferentz won't be there. Is there potential for Iowa's offense?
We don't know.
To score more than 13 points?
I'm a believer in Tim Lester. Tim Lester's going to go in there, and he's going to have RPOs at the ready. He's a big RPO believer. They're gonna get in some tight end sets, so they'll continue to use the personnel that Iowa used previously, but they're going to spice things up offensively. I sounded crazy earlier this week when I mentioned Iowa's maybe an outside type team to make the 12-team playoff, and got some texts about that one. But I mean, if they can fix where they were offensively the last several years and continue to play defense that Kirk Ferentz and Iowa are known for, it's not a crazy thought.
Yeah, I
shared this with you, Scott, on the phone, and I'll share it with the nation now. In terms of pure content, I want Iowa to either score 42 a game or 13 a game. If they just score like 24 or something regular, that would be incredibly boring.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tim Lester as well. I think he's really sharp. That was a nice hire, not only getting him away from the Green Bay Packers, but also he had appeared headed for a reunion with Jared Parker down at Troy to run Troy's offense. Instead, he's at Iowa. Is Cade McNamara? How healthy is he? How big of a stride does he take forward for Iowa? That, to me, is huge in this game and moving forward.
Sneaky good game, I believe. Miami of Ohio is playing Northwestern. I think that's a sneaky good football game. That could be a lot of fun. I don't know if anybody's got comments on that.
No, I do. Miami of Ohio has the Gabbert kid at quarterback. Yeah, there's still one of the Gabbert brothers playing quarterback in college football. It's his 6th year. He's a really salty quarterback, just really savvy guy. Interesting to see. I'll see Miami of Ohio in person here in a few weeks when they visit South Bend. I'm going to go to that game against Notre Dame. Chuck Martin has been particularly entertaining this August. I've loved every soundbite, every clip, all of Doug's writings on it. So I'm looking forward to it. Northwestern caught lightning in a bottle a bit last year, had some success when nobody expected it. Now can they build moving forward?
With a staff that David Braun has put together with his own hands, right? With Zach Lujan calling the offense. And now we're going to see what a true David Braun team looks like, and playing in arguably the most beautiful temporary stadium in college football history, right on the shores of Lake Michigan, on the other side of the lake from us. I'm really excited just to tune in and see what that stadium looks like on game day, what the Northwestern offense looks like, and Chuck Martin has been in the headlines more the past week and a half than he probably has in the past 2 years, and then the man's coming off an 11 win season. So you can say what you want about his takes. He lost a couple coaches. I know one coach left for Pitt for the tight ends job. Joe Bowen left to be the defensive coordinator at Buffalo after coaching a really good linebacker squad. So he replaces quite a bit. Both sides are replacing a lot for very different reasons. So that I agree, Scott. Sneaky good game.
How about let me ask this question. Do either of these teams have a chance to upset? Does Old Dominion have a chance to upset South Carolina? Does UTEP have a chance to upset Nebraska?
No. If I had to pick one, if you said you have to pick one where an upset could happen, I would pick Old Dominion. But I think both home teams take care of business. Now, I'm more confident in Nebraska taking care of business a bit more emphatically than I am South Carolina. but I think both home teams, both power teams, take care of business.
Yeah, I'm interested in that UTEP-Nebraska game, not as upset fodder, but just to get a look at Scotty Walden leading UTEP for the first time, and then Nebraska. They've lost 4 straight opening games. They've started 4 straight seasons 0-1 to try to instill a winning culture. You know, we had the clip of Matt Rule getting on to his guys about why this behavior in practice is why we've been losing. It's time to start winning, and to get a look at Dylan Raiola, the franchise player. Talked to a source of mine that knows quarterback play very well, who's skeptical of Dylan as a quarterback despite his high ranking. So I'll be interested to see him in his debut.
This is like the week 1 2 teams with the most hype. Like quietly, UTEP has a ton of energy around it. Scotty Walden's going to come out of there and what, like, his hair's on fire. He's going to have as much energy as his most hyped up player, and his team's going to feed off that. How long are they able to sustain that with against a Big Ten program like Nebraska, who a lot of people, I would put them in that outside conversation for the 12-team playoff with my bold prediction. Like, they got to be in the mix as long as Dylan Raiola can make some good decisions.
Because I can't help myself, I just keep going. South Dakota State, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State. Look, South Dakota State, just a splendid FCS program, absolutely elite. But I think Oklahoma State's fairly veteran up front. They're obviously great at the running back position. Big 12 has got sneaky good depth this year. When you start thinking about an Oak State, Kansas, K-State, Utah, Central Florida, on and on, Arizona. So I think Oak State just has too much in this game. For sure.
I think Oklahoma State's overrated despite the experience they bring back. I think a lot of their running game was more Ollie Gordon than the offensive line. And I think South Dakota State can make this game interesting. And if it happens, it would be the least surprising FCS upset of an AP top 25 team of all time, and a list that probably includes 3 or 4 games total. But I like South Dakota State to keep this one very interesting.
The least surprising of all time. Okay.
If it happens.
Okay. All right. Barry Odom is bringing UNLV to Houston. Willie Fritz's first game as a head coach in Houston. Any thoughts on that one before we shut this thing down?
Houston's widely predicted to get last in the Big 12. This is a rebuild and an opportunity. I know UNLV lost a lot of personnel from their breakthrough team last year, but I don't know what the line is, but I'd take the Rebels, whatever it is.
The line, I think, is actually just 1.5. And I can't remember which direction that leads. It might be Houston favored by 1.5. I can't recall, but it's almost a pick'em game. I think that Houston gets this game, gets this done, but it's another opportunity for Brennan Marion to showcase his go-go offense. The guy interviewed for some head coaching spots this past cycle. Another strong season from UNLV. I think Brennan Marion will take that head coaching leap sooner rather than later.
I think UNLV gets this one. Continuity year 2 with Barry Odom. Just won 9 games, I think, at UNLV last year, which is astonishing in itself. Brennan Marion's got a full year of film with the go-go offense at the FBS level that Willie Fritz and company have dug into. But I think UNLV handles business.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Houston's a 2.5-point favorite is what I said.
There you go. 2.5. I was just looking that up.
All right, gentlemen, the floor is open. Any other games you want to talk about before we shut this thing down?
10 seconds. Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt. Virginia Tech, a trendy pick to win the ACC. Vanderbilt, a very key year for Clark Lee. I expect this game to be fairly low scoring. It's in Nashville. There'll probably be tens of people there. Can Vanderbilt get a big win?
Virginia Tech returns 20 out of 22 starters on both sides of the ball. That's pretty impressive.
You just answered my question.
I'd rewind a bit, and I you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw a tweet that the football helmet communication only applies to FBS programs. Is that correct? And FCS programs have to choose to invest in that helmet communication system for one game if they have a crossover game, or they don't. North Dakota State decided to pony up for the helmet communication system for their one game against Colorado, which I think tells you the commitment at North Dakota State. So I could be wrong. Saw that online and wanted to bring that up.
That's a hell of a good note, Doug. You are correct there. I've written about this. FCS teams may choose to use it for their crossover games this season. However, it is coming to the FCS level in 2025. So the programs that make that decision this year, making a smart one because it's supposed to be omnipresent a year from now.
Gotcha.
No one outside of me cares about this one bit, but I'll be at the Alito Denton Geyer High School football game on tomorrow night. It's the best high school football game in Dallas-Fort Worth, which makes it the best game in Texas, which makes it the best high school football game in America. And I can't wait to soak it up live tomorrow night.
Doug, I hope you send his bud a picture from Comstock Park tomorrow night. Show him what real football is.
Amen. It's going to be packed out. Not the $20 million stadiums, but we got everything else.
You got character. You got character. You got real concessions. You don't have Aramark serving your concession stand, by God. You got people on a grill in the parking lot. That's America.
Moms and dads, not just anyone. Moms and dads. School.
How about it, JoJo?
Football is back. God bless America. I love this country. Football Scoop Podcast is out. If you had fun listening to this thing, if you're with us 46 minutes in, tell your whole family Football Scoop Podcast is your favorite podcast. We love you. We're out.